Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel and my supercharged BMW Z3. Now, I've owned this car for just over a week, and I thought I'd give you some initial thoughts on what it's like to daily drive a supercharged track car. Let's kick things off with some things I really like about this car, just the way it looks. I think the BMW Z3 is just such a design classic. Now, you may disagree, let me know in the comments. Even like these little vents here, which I believe are actually real. I think it's really cool. I think it's just really, really nice. It gives it a very sort of sporty feel. Does it do anything apart from vent? Probably not. It's not really going to add to downforce, let's face it. But I do think it looks really, really cool. And it's nice that we've got a little Nürburgring emblem here because, of course, Taylor did take this down to the Nürburgring. And hopefully I will too in the near future. Hopefully this year. We'll see. You open up this bonnet and this is not a sight that you expect to see out of a boulevard cruiser that the Z3 is. It was never intended to go on track or be that an entertaining drive. You know, it was a bit floppy, a bit baggy out of the factory, and so popping the bonnet and just seeing this Downing Atlanta Supercharger, it just looks so cool. It feels like a track car, it looks like a track car, and it goes like a track car. And these wheels are absolutely fantastic. They've been refurbished in this lovely gunmetal colour, and they are wrapped in some really sticky semi-slick tyres. It's going to be absolutely fantastic when I get out on the track day. And whilst the cabin isn't particularly practical, at least it's got a decent boot. That means that you can easily get more than enough luggage for a weekend away. Now, let's talk about one of the downsides, getting in and out of this car, because it is low. Let me show you. 3 points of contact. Oh, Jesus. Now, getting in, that's okay. That's not too bad because you can kind of brace yourself, all that sort of stuff. Getting out, however, there's no way else to put it. You just look really stupid because you kind of need to think about your exit approach. So, you've got to kind of get yourself into like a seated position outside and then sort of hop yourself forward and then out. You just don't look particularly cool doing it. And yeah, I don't know if I'm going to have to raise the ride height or something like that. I think fundamentally it's down to the seats, which are probably one of the biggest problems with this car right now, because as you can see, I have this lovely, lovely flowery petally cushion thing right here. That's because the seat is so low. If I remove my my tactical cushion and just have the raw bucket, I'm going to show you the difference. Oh, Jesus. So first of all, my eye line, I just see steering wheel. Now, I'm 5'11", so not particularly tall, not particularly short, and you basically end up having to do this to see the road. I feel like a child trying to drive a car right here, and the reason of that is to do with this roll cage, which I'll show you in a minute. But let me show you exiting without my tactical support cushion. So as you can see, the angle is much steeper. Oh. And again, you just don't look good. So until I can figure out a better solution with these seats, that cushion needs to stay. The reason why these are so difficult is because these are one-piece tillet bucket seats. So they've got absolutely zero adjustment. They are very lightweight, but completely inflexible. So that means to fit these seats with this roll cage, the seat has to be essentially tipped backwards a little bit. So it is lower at the back than it is at the front. And it means you have just a very sort of odd driving position from stock. And it also means that this seat is actually hitting the roll cage in two places, which is why I've put some gaffer tape just to give it a little bit of extra protection, because it was squeaking incessantly. Speaking of squeaking, this was quite rattly after I collected it from Taylor, because whilst it's awesome that he's tried to retain some of the interior, it wasn't really designed to have a big roll cage fitted to it, which means all this sort of cheap 90s plastic essentially was just rattling and squeaking and bumping, all that sort of stuff, and squeaks and rattles and stuff really get on my nerves. So I've used some interim gaffer tape all over parts of this car just to help keep things in place and stop them rattling. And I'm really happy to say that that has worked, in that with the gaffer tape on the carbon fiber seat and the gaffer tape on the interior, this car is much, much quieter. Does it look stupid, yes, but so does the rest of the car. Let's face it, this is not a sensible looking car. But I do like it. I think it's very, very cool. Let's talk the roof. Now, I am of the thinking that if you have a convertible, unless it's raining, that top needs to be down. Otherwise, they're just, you know, a bit compromised, because the 3/4 view with the roof up isn't particularly good. And I think that's true of all convertibles. So if you're going to have a convertible, use it with the roof down, because otherwise just get a different car. So putting up, it's manual, it's not particularly heavy, which I think is really good from a track perspective. You don't want the extra weight of a folding metal roof, all that extra motors and servos. This is just up and down, 2 catches, nice and easy. No rips or tears or anything like that. Needs a bit of a clean, but generally in good condition. It does leak a little bit of water when the car is standing, mainly because I think the roof just touches the roll cage just a little bit, and so it doesn't form a perfect seal here. It could also be that these seals are just old and they've got a little bit sort of less functional as time goes on. One downside is there's a little bit of a rip in the back of the plastic. I think that was caused when Taylor had a fire extinguisher here, and then he put the roof down without moving it, and it kind of just burst through. A little bit annoying, but fundamentally this plastic window has started to go a little bit opaque anyway. Even if this didn't have a sort of a hole in it, I'd probably end up replacing this anyway if I was keeping this car long term, just because, you know, again, these sort of rear windows only last sort of 5 or 10 years, depending on the amount of sunlight that hits them. Probably not much of a risk in the UK at the moment, I can tell you that much. So it's probably worth replacing anyway. It would be nice if it didn't have gaffer tape on the back of it, but considering the interior is covered in gaffer tape, who cares really? Not me anyway. And I wasn't kidding that this has been my daily, which means it has to transport the kids. This is my son's car seat, and it's actually been okay. It's been surprisingly practical. And because it's got the racing harness, you know, at least he's kind of held in pretty tight. Obviously, I'd never want to be in a crash with any of my kids, but again, it's as good as it potentially could be. Again, not sort of a long-term dad car solution. I need to get either the punter back on the road or a replacement if that one is if that car is dead. But at least for now, it's okay. And the kids always love a convertible. That's kind of the exterior and talking about the seats. The next thing that I kind of want to improve is the interior. It's looking a little bit tired. You know, we've got a little bit of burns, it's dirty, it needs a big clean, but also this center console looked absolutely rubbish, and it doesn't look much better at the moment. But originally when Taylor bought it had this stuck on metal piece and a clock and a voltage gauge that overread, so it was kind of pointless. And I didn't see the point of having a clock next to a clock. Okay, yeah, the readout on this is a little bit dim, but it's easier to replace this, and then it looks kind of vaguely factory. Now, I'm probably going to get a replacement one of these, just because there's been some holes burnt in with a soldering iron. It's covered in sort of PVA glue here, and like various other bits, and it just looks a bit rubbish. And this is all sort of interim changes. So, you know, that head unit will go. I'll probably get a Blaupunkt one that looks a bit better, that has Bluetooth. There is a huge amount of kind of alternator whine coming through, and you can hear the supercharger and all that sort of stuff through the audio. Now, I don't know if that's just because it's got a poor ground, or I need to get a ground loop isolator. I don't know. Most of the time I don't really listen to the radio when driving this car anyway, because the exhaust is so loud. It doesn't really work. There's no point putting more noise into the situation, but maybe sort of a better ground might help. So one of the things I'm going to talk to Taylor about in the future. Replacing the center console just with original items, so like kind of 20-40 quid, that sort of stuff, not a huge amount of money. I think will just lift the interior a little bit, just because it feels like a little bit worn and tired in places, and it would be nice just to have that sort of clean. And I know some of you are saying, what's the point of trying to make the interior look factory when you've got this massive ass roll cage behind you and you're on semi-slicks, on coilovers? And I don't necessarily disagree, but I do spend a lot of time in this interior, and so when you do that, you tend to kind of find out all the sort of the flaws and things that annoy you. And that sort of thing just seems like a really easy thing to change. Although it's not that easy to change, because you actually have to remove all of this to be able to pull all this out, because there's some screws that are screwed in sort of that way, which is really frustrating because in most other cars it would probably just be some clips that hold this section in, but you know, it is what it is. Other than that, it still needs a big clean. I've kind of cleaned half of it, like the driver's side, but I do need to kind of get over to this side of the car because it's just a little bit scrungy and tired. So what's next for the Z3? First of all, we need to sort out these seats. So I was speaking to Taylor earlier in the week, and he thinks that he's got another set of bucket seats that might fit a little bit better. I think essentially they're a little bit shorter, and so that means that the top won't sort of hit the roll cage. Fingers crossed that's the case, because ultimately, whilst my tactical cushion is working, it looks really stupid. And honestly, I've got like a 85% seating position right now. It's more than enough. It's fine for short journeys. On a long journey, it starts to get a little bit tiring, just because I'm, you know when you're not in the right seating position, and it just gets a little bit annoying. So I really hope that we can get those seats sorted, because, you know, how long can I keep a car that's just super uncomfortable? I don't know. That's something I'll need to think about. Certainly, this is definitely going to be my summer car, but realistically, you know, if it's my only car, if the Punto is completely dead, which I really hope it isn't, but if this is my only car, then maybe I don't keep it that long. I don't know. We'll have to think about it. But if the Punto does live, then this just becomes my sort of, you know, silly car that I can drive whenever, and that way the seating position doesn't really bother me. I think it's only been annoying me so much is because I've been driving this car every day, and so it can get a little bit frustrating. But anyway, I digress. We're going to go take this car back to Taylor's and just have a look at it and see what we can do. Fingers crossed we can, because I think that would really just cement this car as just an awesome thing to drive. One other thing that we need to do, I haven't talked about, is the exhaust. It's not that it's loud. Again, it's very much in the same position than when we have had the straight through exhaust with the Punto. It's that it's quite drony on the motorway, and after a while that does just get a bit tiring. So I think I'll definitely need to take it to Pipecraft in the next month or so, get a resonator put on, and probably put a cat on as well, because when this car starts in the morning, not only is it quite loud and a bit antisocial, you can just smell how rich it's running. And definitely I think BDS have probably made sure that the starting fuel map is pretty rich, just to help it get going. But some of that's also just down to the fact that it hasn't got a cat. So I think that would be quite nice just to get that sorted. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if Bruno wants this exhaust back and we get a different exhaust fitted, because this is his race exhaust. So Bruno, if you're watching this, let me know. I'm sure we can sort something out. Other than that, this car has been great. So those are a few things that I think are great, but also probably need a little bit of improvement on this car. Overall, I'm absolutely stoked about it. It drives so well. It is so planted and so flat in the corners. Isn't that uncomfortable apart from the seat? The actual ride quality, I think, is actually pretty decent, all things considered. And it probably rides similarly harshly to my Tesla, but it doesn't annoy me as much. I don't know why that is. Maybe because it's a cheaper car, maybe it's because it's a track focused car, I don't know. But overall, I absolutely love this car. It's so good to be in a convertible, but also a convertible that's just so fun to drive. It is so planted in the corners. It is so much stiffer thanks to this roll cage. There is absolutely zero scuttle shake. It's actually just a really solidly built car, and that's down to all the work that BDS and Taylor have put in. So I really do appreciate everything they've done on this car, and I can see why Taylor has really struggled to sell this car, because it's just absolute riot. It's so much fun to drive, and I'm really looking forward to getting this one out on a track day soon. But that, I think, brings us to the end of the video. If you've watched